It's on. He's got us going.
We are on? Okay. My monitor's not on. We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Ask all of us to stand for the pledge, and member Michael Rather to lead us in the pledge, please. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher.
Here.
Joe Crowell.
Here.
Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machoto.
Here.
Michael Rather.
Here.
Jared Barrett.
Here.
Dane Cantrell.
Present.
You have a quorum and all voting members are present, sir.
Thank you. You have the minutes of our last meeting that was mailed out to you. Do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I move we approve them.
Have a motion that be approved. Do we have a second? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, like signs. Minutes are approved.
I got conflicting. Who was the motion and the second on that?
Pardon me?
I was hearing two voices. Who were the motion and the second?
Joe and Keith.
Joe and Keith. Okay, thank you.
Okay, got it? Ready? Okay. The first item of business we have is a request by David Aston, who is requesting a conditional use permit for an accessory structure. What do you have on that, please?
All right. Thank you, Chairman Bell. Case 2012-58 filed by David and Peggy Aston involves the property at 8975 Paw Paw Springs Road. It's 11.38 acres, zone residential 15. Mr. and Mrs. Aston are seeking conditional use permit to allow the establishment of an accessory structure prior to the principal structure for a property located in the R15 zone. The structure measures 160 square feet in area, and it will be used for personal storage before they actually start construction of the principal residence. It will be located on the site towards the middle of the property. This property is located in a rural area made up of large tracts and single-family homes. Staff finds that it does meet the criteria for conditional use permit approval for an accessory prior to the principal, provided that it continually meet the conditions outlined in Section 1304E3 of the Rutherford County Zoning Resolution. We received one phone call regarding the application inquiring as to what the sign on the property identified, and once it was explained to the person that all they wanted to do was place like a shed on the property to store tools, they had no problems with what the request, what Mr. Ashton was seeking. And we posted a sign on the property, as you can see in the photos, and that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this? If you'll come around, please give us your name and any additional information you'd like to share.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of the Zoning Appeals, my name is Dave Aston. My current mailing address is 204 Myhr Green, M-Y-H-R Green, Nashville. And back in August 2011, my wife and I purchased the vacant property located at 8975 Paw Paw Springs Road in Smyrna. No improvements had been made on the property at the time of purchase. Subsequently, we have obtained a land disturbance permit and have begun preparations to build our dream house. A lot of work still remains to be done to prepare the site for construction of the house and to improve the property's appearance. Our desire is to begin construction of the house, our primary structure, in the spring of 2013. The purpose of the accessory structure that I'm seeking your permission to build is twofold. Initial purpose is for storage, secure storage of the tools and the equipment that I'm using to improve the property. I currently reside in Bellevue on the west side of Nashville, and it's a 45-minute commute each way to the property. It's very inconvenient for me to load the tools into my car, travel to the property, unload the tools again, work, load the tools back in the car, travel back to Bellevue, and unload the car again. Well, the inconvenience is further compounded if I happen to forget the tool that I needed. The secondary purpose is for a playhouse for my grandchildren. Upon completion of the house, our primary structure, the tools will be moved into the basement. I have read and I understand the letter you received from the planning staff. I agree with their findings. I also agree to comply with their recommended conditions, and I respectfully request your approval at this time. Do we have any questions from the board? Thank you. I think it's pretty clear. Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. We'll close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
They have a second. Got a second. Jerry. Call a roll, please.
Bratcher,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, it is approved. The next item we have is a request by Chair Sergi and Mary Chabonk, and this is for a conditional use permit for an accessory structure dwelling. What do you have on that?
Thank you. Application 2012-59 filed by Sergey and Mary Chabenko involves the property located at 3013 Palace Place. It's a 0.45 acre parcel, zone residential 15. They are seeking conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit that does not meet the design standards for ADUs involving a property in the R15 zone. This site, being that it's less than an acre, automatically places it into the Type 2 conditional use permit category because of the design standards that we establish for accessory dwelling units. It is detached. It is located behind the house. It's the second floor of a garage, and the garage and dwelling unit were built to match the facade of the existing residence on the property, and they will be required to continually meet the regulations for ADUs. If we find, if the board approves it, that's one of the recommended conditions that we have included in our staff report. We've received no phone calls regarding this particular application, and the applicant is here to answer any questions you may have, and it does meet the criteria for conditional use approval. We posted a sign on the property. There were some concerns initially that the septic lines weren't adequate to serve the proposed ADU, but they have actually worked with the Department of Health and Environment, and that's been resolved. So this is the last step to coming into compliance with the zoning resolution, and that concludes our presentation.
Do we have anyone here representing this? If you'll come around, please. If you'll just give us your name and any additional information that we may have missed on this.
Live on 3013 Palace Place, and pretty much everything that she said covers it. If you have other questions about anything, I'd be happy to answer it at this time.
Keith.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. With this, it's like a garage apartment?
Relative's apartment?
No, I'd say with the garage and what the bathroom and stuff. So I mean, is this like a garage apartment?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you all plan to use this for rental property?
No.
Okay. What's your
Well, the short-term plan was my husband wanted a two-car garage, and then I got involved. So what we're planning on doing is I have a daughter and a grandson who will live in it for a period of time. He has family overseas that in a couple of years will come over. So things like that. We don't have any serious plans.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. It's pretty clear what you're asking for. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion on it?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion be approved.
Have a motion that be approved. What do we have a second? Have a second. Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
It is approved. The next item is a request by Michael McCrary, who's requesting a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. What do you have on that?
Thank you. Application 2012-60 filed by Michael McCrary involves the property located at 5129 Joe Bond Trail. It's a .62 acre parcel zone residential 15. And because this property is less than an acre, it is thrust into the category of the Type 2 conditional use permit process for ADUs. And I misspoke in the pre-meeting. It does exceed the minimum size standards too. It's 61% of the principal structure. However, that doesn't change anything because it still does not meet the standards. So in two ways, they're seeking relief from this requirement for ADUs or the design standards. The site is located in a platted subdivision. We received one phone call, informational, and they were not opposed to what the request involved. And the applicant is planning to build an addition to the principal residence to provide the additional dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit for, I believe it's an in-law or mother. So we found that it meets the criteria, provided that it continually meet the conditions for accessory dwelling units. We posted a sign on the property, and that concludes our presentation. And that's the site plan.
Okay. Do we have anyone here representing this? If you'll come around, please. If you'll give us your name and any additional information you have.
Hi, I'm Michael McCrary. I reside at 5129 Joe Bond Trail, and I am requesting zoning change for the proposed unit. It will be an in-law suite for my mother-in-law. And if you have any other questions, I'll feel free to answer.
Any questions? No questions. Looks like we know what you're asking. Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second? Joe.
I'll second it.
Joe Machoto. Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
It is approved. Danielle, my understanding is that the planning document was approved without a lot of discussion. Is that correct?
That's right. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and it goes into effect January 1st. And when we review our cases in January, it will be using the new regulations, and we will no longer process conditional use permits. They will now be titled special exceptions. So there's your warning.
Are there any other changes that you're aware of that we should, I think we've gone over most of that at the training session that we had. But is there anything else that has come out since that time that we needed to discuss?
No, there were no additional changes, but for the sake of just repeating one of the major changes in the code, we process a lot of variances for accessory structure size. You might see a reduction in that because the allowances have now been increased. And so you might not find so many variance requests before you next year.
Some of these, I understand, could be administrative decisions that you all could handle without it coming to us. Is that correct? You don't know?
Either it goes before the Board of Zoning Appeals or it's handled administratively. If there's any kind of discrepancy or concern about a use that maybe isn't, because our zoning code is much different than it has been. We have express uses, so you may occasionally get a use that wasn't contemplated during the drafting of this document, and you might, as a board, decide whether or not that use, where it falls into, what category does it fall into. That might be something a little different than you've had in the past, not much different than maybe the appeals process where someone disagrees or has a concern about like staff's interpretation of the zoning resolution.
Well, would the planning office make that decision before it comes to us, or would the board, BZA, make that decision after it comes to us in a public hearing, public venue? You understand what I'm asking?
I do. I mean, if it gets to if it's something that can't be done administratively, it will automatically come before you. And who makes that determination? It ultimately is the director's determination as to whether or not. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there is some discretion that we might have in determining if it's like a particular use that's already identified in the code, that if it's so much alike and it's just a matter of terminology, then staff may use their discretion and assign it under that category, but it would be a logical thing. But if it's something that's not even anything that we've encountered before, it probably would be brought before you before a decision's made.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I, could be wrong. Okay, the particular regulations for accessory dwelling units did not change that much, if at all. The only thing that might change is the fact that with some of the prior requests that you had before, it was detached, and often they exceeded the square footage for detached accessory structures. You might see that secondary request fall off the request, but it's still a 1 acre minimum.
I thought we were going to get new business, the Board of Zoning Appeals.
The type of business that you would get would be for properties that carried a non-residential zoning category. We have now permitted uses and special exception uses that are allowed in each district. And the draft copy that we handed to you at the training has a chart that shows what uses are permitted outright and what uses require special exception. The special exception uses would be coming before you for you to determine. And there are certain criteria associated with some of them that you would consider. That's in addition to the general criteria that you have. No.
Jerry, do you have a question?
I just wanted to express thanks to Danielle and the rest of the staff that the training we had was really good for us to get into our own specifics during that training and not have it taught by someone that was it was so broad. It was good to get our own laws in there. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was particularly really good this time because it was specific to the BZA. And, so many times in the past we've been hustled into the planning people when they have their training, which is good to see what they're doing as well. But on the other side, we also need specific training for the BZA, and that was very good, especially since this document is going into effect January the 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we'll see, and I think it's going to have some effect, quite a bit of effect, on the items that come before us and how we will deliberate on them. So we're ahead of the curve so far at this point. We think we are anyway. So if I run into some things that we are not expecting, we'll give you a heads up and let you know. Try to let you know ahead of time. Any other business that needs to come before the BZA?
I would like to add, may I? What we passed out at the training session was the last draft version of the code, which I can say with 99% certainty that was it was adopted in that format. There were no language changes in that code. But if you would like a copy of the code, the adopted code, just let me know, and I'll be glad to bring you one at the January meeting. And I know I need to bring you one, Mr. Rather. But the one that you were handed during the training session would be sufficient for your purposes. Just to save paper.
Okay, the document that we already have, we don't need any additional. There's no changes in what we were.
No.
Okay.
Okay. But
So those of you who did not get one,
draft,
you need to let Danielle know, and she'll bring one in January for us. Okay?
And it's online as well, so.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.